Are you feeling a bit down about maybe your finances, maybe your wealth, and your self esteem doesn't feel so good because of it? And because of your self esteem, you find yourself struggling financially. Well, today I'm going to talk about wealth and worth and how self esteem impacts finances and some tips to work through this today. Now, for me, I remember being in places where the first time I was selling something, my own coaching services, and this was many years ago now, and I just remember saying a price to someone on the phone, and it was not much at all. It was like no more than 100, I think it was about £150. And I said to them, that was it, and I felt like this big inside of me, like, oh my God, am I actually worthy of charging someone £150 for coaching sessions? Which is crazy, 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 crazy cheap, right? And I just remember just feeling like an imposter. Like, who am I to ask someone for money? Who am I to do this? And my self-esteem didn't feel so good. I can remember being in like many workplaces and I thought before that in my career, like, I really got to work hard, else they're going to have a go at me for paying me for doing nothing. And that was a huge fear for me. It was like, we don't pay you for nothing, ever being accused of that. No one ever did say that to me. That was always a huge, huge fear. Now I'm in a place where I sell a lot of things. I make pretty decent money, and both in a business perspective, career, and in sales as well. I became a sales manager. And I was in a place where I had such a lack of belief in myself that I was worthy of money. So maybe you can relate to this, because what I want to talk to you about today is often our story holds us back. It's like, I'm just not the kind of person who makes a lot of money. I'm not the kind of person who deserves it. I'm telling you, that's absolute BS. Like, that's made up. You are worthy of what you desire to make, right? It's just there's some blocks in us. Now, I'm always working on myself, working through blocks. There's obviously some blocks else I'd be a multi-millionaire right now to go further. Yet I've progressed so much further in my journey from being terrified of asking for money. Now, I'm not talking about going around the street and just saying, give me money, give me money. Obviously, that's something I wouldn't do. But I mean, when I'm giving something of service and value, I'm not afraid to say my worth. And that's because I've done a lot of work on my self-esteem. So I really wanted to, touch on this today because it's something really close to me, and I'm always fascinated by wealth and finances and how that works for some people. Now, I've learned from my studies, from doing all this learning in psychology and learning from the greats out there, learning a lot about wealth psychology, that, and it's not just our beliefs about money, it's our beliefs about like our ability to be liked in general, our ability to do things. They come from a young age, because as children we pick up beliefs and information around us, and often we hear from our parents or guardians who looked after us, even our environments at school, what other people are saying, and that's like we're soaking it up in the first, particularly it's considered to be the first 7 years. We're soaking a lot of this information up, and it sticks in our system and we don't even realize it. And then it's actually driving our beliefs as adults unless we start to address and uncover them. And often you might hear things like, money doesn't grow on trees, money's really, really hard to make, only evil people have loads of money, which is ridiculous, because there's there are some people who have a lot of money and don't do so much good in the world, but there are some people in the world who are beautiful human beings and give a lot of money away and help change people's lives, right? But we hear these things, we take them in, and they stick inside of us unless we come to address it. So maybe you've got a lack of belief that you can have money, a lack of self-esteem around it, that you're not worthy of more money. Maybe you heard when you were growing up that, like, oh, we're just not people who make money, because maybe you came from a family who didn't make too much. There's no judgment at all, but these are the kind of things that drives us in. Now, I didn't come from a poor background. I didn't come from a rich background. I came from a pretty, I'd say, middle-ish class background. But there was a lot of beliefs around, right, money's really hard to make. You got, whilst I agree, I totally agree that you don't want to like throw your stuff away, but it was a very, very kind of like safety, protect at all costs, and that money's not going to come around easily. And therefore I made my life very, very hard for many, many years, because I'd always make things 10 times harder than they needed to be, because that's the belief I grew up with. I'd always try and look for the most complicated way to make money. But when I actually started being like more effortless and energetic, giving value, that's when I found money came a lot quicker to me, right? Money is value. When you give value, and you can only give lots of value if you build up your self-esteem. So it's really important that you build that up, right? Because when the more value you get, the more money I've tended to make, right? And working hard is not the same as adding value, but often people who give value do work hard as well. So how is it helping you by being caught in the same stories of like, I'm not worthy of the money, I've got a lack of self-esteem? Well, if you're like me, it didn't do any favors. So let's look at some points on what you can do to move through this. The first one is really working on your imagination. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the greatest books known about money and personal growth is Think and Grow Rich. And it actually comes from a longer version by Napoleon Hill, who's the author, called Laws of Success, which is the extended version. And one of the key principles in there he talks about is imagination. And it kind of, when I first read it, didn't make a lot of sense. But as I read it more and more and recapped it and started living more experiences, speaking to more people in the space, and came across a lot of people who had a lot of money and very good, genuine people, I wouldn't connect myself to someone who didn't have loving and kind attentions anyway. And it started to really make sense, because the imagination is coming from like our subconscious mind, and it's really driving us. And our imagination is purely the words and pictures going on inside ourselves, particularly the pictures. And if you've got this like feeling, this image, this feeling, knowing you're going to get something, chances are you're more likely to get it. Think about the most basic tasks you might do, like you leaving your home. Your imagination's got it so ingrained in its system, it can see it before that you don't even need to think about it. You'll just like leave your home, or getting dressed, or driving a car, or if you can ride a bike, whatever you can do, right? Your imagination has it nailed down. And there's probably a certain like earning capacity. Like if you make, this is just a random example, but say you're making like £30,000 or dollars a year, which is not a massive amount in this economy, and you're used to making that. That's in your imagination. That's your blueprint. If you suddenly something happened and you started earning a lot less, chances are you probably build back up. It may be a bit challenging, but you probably build back up quite quickly. The same is with, you hear about people who are really successful with money and consistently, right? You hear stories about, they lost a few million, but they get it back very quickly, right? Because in their imagination, they've got this like image, this belief of the fact that they know, they've got a certainty. So working on your imagination is really, really key, I found. And I found that as I built on my self-esteem and my imagination, things become a lot more effortless. Now, how do you do this? Just visualizing for even a minimum of 5 minutes a day, and actually seeing where you want to be and feeling good. Now, what I do is I combine it with jumping on the trampoline. I'll say where I want to go and I jump up and I'll really, really feel it. But building your imagination so that you really feel what you want to be earning, what you deserve, again and again. Your mind doesn't know the difference between fake and reality. So doing that even for 5 minutes a day, picturing the amount of money you'd like to earn in a year, something within reach, I would suggest. Don't go from like, you're earning like £30,000 to earning 3 million within the next year. Now, that's not impossible, but maybe you aim for something like £100,000 in the year, and then feeling that in your imagination and doing it again and again, right? The next one is, this is people aren't going to like this, don't like this when I say it, and I didn't like this either. But it's pretty much a non-negotiable that you're going to have to do to move through like the fear of money and not feeling worthy, and it applies to other areas outside of money, is you've got to actually take the courageous action. So if you're scared of selling, sorry, you got to go and sell. If you're scared of marketing, sorry, you've got to go and market. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do a massive jump in. It just means you build up. I was terrified to speak to anyone about money on the phone. I did sales. I was like, I dread the calls. I was terrified. But you know what? As I did more and more, confidence built up. You know, even when I didn't make a sale, which was many, many calls, right? Especially at the beginning. And I was always made sure I was selling something I believed in. There was one thing I didn't, so I left. I always like to be in integrity, but actually that involves me selling. And I had to talk to other people about my services and money. And that can be very, very scary, but you've actually got to take the action. Everyone likes to think, not everyone, but I hear it many, many times. People like to think, and I've been guilty of this. I've got this story. I've got this fear. I'm just scared of it and I'm different. No, we all have fears. It's just our ability to work through them or not. Even though your body's going to feel it, you're going to feel terrified. Just take the courageous action to do something, like start that side hustle, put yourself out there. Or if you may be in business, just really working through that fear of selling and money and asking for money. Like, I'm not talking about you don't need to go around the street and beg for money. I know, unfortunately, the poor people who live on the streets who are homeless do have to do that. I'm not talking about you need to do that. I'm just talking about when there's an opportunity, don't be afraid to talk about money, because if you hold that fear, it's going to hold in you, right? The third thing is gratitude. Gratitude for what you already have, just appreciating what you've got, because abundance is gratitude. Like, and the more abundant you feel, I found, the more that comes to me. Now, it's not alone. You can't just like sit around and be like, oh, I'm going to feel grateful, and then all this money and wealth is going to come to me and suddenly all my worth's going to go up. No, that's why I said the previous action. You got to take the courageous action, but working on how you're psychologically feeling and taking the courageous action, that's a winning formula. So make sure you're working on things like gratitude as well as your imagination as well. Okay, my next point is learn more and more. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you need to be listening to the right information, not the wrong information. If you're listening to tapes about, like, if you're listening to, I always do this one, but if you're listening to the news and you're like, oh, there's like a financial crisis, blah, 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 there's always something going on, right? Or some kind of issue, all these kind of things. And you know, sometimes, yeah, there are challenges in the world, but if you're always listening to that kind of thing about scarcity, then that's just going to make your survival mind just look for more dangers. As opposed to if you listen, what I did, I was listening to Undercover Billionaire, which has got some huge stars who made some money. And do you know what? I was listening to them, their positive attitude. This is a show, if you've not come across it, where you've got some millionaires and a couple of them are billionaires. You've got people like Grant Cardone was on it. And they basically go and start from nothing apart from their own mind, in a place they don't know anyone, and they can't use any contacts, and they can't use their current business. They got to start from zero and build $1 million in 90 days. I think 3 out of 4 of them did. And then the other one was like really, really close and got to like 750,000, like 750,000. Anyway, they all did it from like their mind, but I was listening to them. I was listening to that show regularly, and I started to pick up like their vibration, their attitude towards money. It was like, they were looking everywhere. There was opportunities left, right, and centre. They were creative. And what I realised is I've got that ability as well. And you've got that ability as well. It's just learning from the right people. So that's what I'm going to share as well. Learning that there's always opportunities that they believe they're worthy of money and you can be worthy of money. And then the fifth one is it's very much linked. It's just kind of a follow on. but it's like taking the right guidance from the right people. If you hang out with people who think money's tough, money's a struggle, money's evil, all these kind of things, it's going to be very hard to change your mindset around it and how worthy you are of it and feel good enough for it. As opposed to people you hang out with make you feel good, make you feel like you're worthy of it. They feel like they're worthy of money and wealth. Then that's going to have a different impact. I say this many times, but as human beings, we adapt to our environment. So make sure you really prioritize what's in your environment and the people in it as well. So that's what I got for you today. I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.